All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have Connor Group presenting for us on the topic of how to effectively adapt to a remote working environment. And we're excited to have them here, their first time doing a Monday meeting with CSUN. So before we get started, Isaac and I just want to give you a quick announcement of upcoming events.
Right. So on Friday, we have a pumpkin carving with AA. It'll be from 5 to 6 p.m. and it's just another fun event held by AA, just so we all get to hang out.
So yeah, come join us for that. And we'll pass it off to Andrew, Matt, Nayeli, and Jared to get us started with the topic. And yeah.
Go.
All right, so hi everyone. My name is Nayeli. I am a CSUN alumna. I graduated class of 2015 with my bachelor's in accounting. Ever since then, I joined a Singer WAG for 4 years. It's a local public accounting firm. I was an auditor with them, and I worked on several clients, mostly in private and nonprofit industry. We were in, consumer products, nonprofits, professional services. I did entertainment and media, and we also did technology. And then just shortly afterwards, I took a year off, and I later found about Connor Group. And so I did not want to join public accounting again. So I was indecisive whether I should do private and check it out, but I didn't want to get stuck in the month-end cycles. And I wanted to continue to challenge myself and learn about new clients and have that breadth of experience, which they offer. And so I joined them earlier this year. And so far I've been working on 2 clients. One of them is an e-commerce based client. We're helping them with quarterization and also just fulfilling audit requests for their IPO. And then another client I have been helping on is a SaaS client, just with their month-end close as well, and system implementations, having better efficiencies in their accounting cycle. So just a little bit about me. So later today, we're going to be discussing different people that work here, their career paths, what they do with Connor Group, and we'll also get into how to effectively adapt to a remote working environment. So I'll pass it on to my colleague, Matt.
Yeah. Hi guys, thanks for having us today. So yeah, I'm Matt. I'm actually from Utah. I live in Orem, Utah right now, right next door to Provo, if you guys know where that's at. I've been with Connor Group for almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years in January. It's been an awesome experience. I started off, I went to school at Utah State, got my bachelor's and master's there, and started at EY out in the Bay Area. I was there for 2 years. Loved it, but I was ready to move on. I found a small accounting consulting firm in the Bay called KBC. They worked with really small clients pre-IPO, helping with their month-end close, optimization, and things like that. And now I'm with Connor Group as well, of course. And like I said, been here 2 years, and it's been an awesome experience. But what I wanted to touch on really quick is the options for you guys out of school. So just kind of as a background, when I was at Utah State University, they kind of groomed us to leave for pursue a Big Four or a large public accounting job out of school. And I feel like a lot of schools, that's kind of what they push their students to do, because I think they know that starting in public accounting, and especially with a large firm, really accelerates your career right from the beginning. Yes, it's hard work and longer hours at first, but the experience that you get from those types of jobs really propels your career forward. And then, of course, you guys have probably heard, the longer that you can stay in one of those firms, the faster and farther you grow. So anyways, that's why I went to EY. Like I said, I was there for 2 years. I had plans to be there for 6 years or even for partner, and as I feel like most new people in public accounting field. But after about 2 years, to be quite honest, I got burnt out. Like I said, the experience was awesome. You can't beat it, but they work you to the bone sometimes. And so I felt like 2 years was good for me. I had learned what I wanted to learn from public accounting, and I started my search. But kind of taking a step back, like I had said, out of school in school, a lot of schools push, either public accounting, either doing audit or tax, or the other option that you're kind of told about is going to work for a company, going to work in industry or in private accounting is what they call it. So when I left EY, that's what I thought my two options were. Not bad options at all. Both have their benefits and their minuses. But I wish that as I was leaving school, I would have known that there was kind of a third option, or maybe more of like a middle ground between the two. And that's kind of what Connor Group is we're a public, not public, we're an accounting consulting firm. So we're still considered like a public or a client serving company, a client serving firm. But we have the benefits, a lot of the benefits that public accounting has, and also a lot of the benefits that industry has. So for example, a lot of the benefits that we have that are similar to public accounting Big Four is that we work with a wide variety of clients. So if you're an employee at Connor Group, you can be put on, a couple clients at a time, or if you can be put on one major client. And those can range from month-end close optimization to implementing new accounting systems, to helping a company set up their internal controls, to helping a company navigate through a bankruptcy. So it's a wide variety of experiences you can have, a wide variety of industries and clients you can serve on. So I think that's a huge benefit there. And also, we also help people to kind of similar, get exposure to a bunch of different types of accounting so they can decide what they want to do one day. And then also we've got the benefits of maybe more private kind of accounting, where we have a little bit better work-life balance, and we kind of get into the weeds of the accounting, recording journal entries and things like that. I don't want to get too far into describing exactly what we do as Connor Group, because that's what's going to be talked about a little bit later. But I just kind of wish that leaving school, I knew that there was more of like a middle ground, kind of a middle option that maybe might not be as, I don't know, time consuming and stressful as public accounting, but also get you the same experience and exposure similar to what public accounting does for you. Maybe by using the emojis in Slack, the emoji reactions, which of you who's planning? So if you guys are planning on doing an audit at a public company, if you could give me the thumbs up. Okay, so just a handful of you.
There we go. Yeah.
If you guys are planning on doing tax at a public accounting firm, give me a heart emoji. Wow, a lot of tax people. Okay, you guys are a different breed, but I'm impressed when people want to do tax. I think it's super valuable. I am the exact opposite of someone that wants to do tax. Let's see, if you're planning on going into industry, maybe working for a company right off the bat, give me the celebration emoji. Okay, so looks like no one's quite wanting to go straight into industry yet. And then if you're undecided or other, let me know with the laugh crying emoji.
Good pick.
Okay. So there's just one. I'm assuming everyone else who didn't participate is also undecided. Anyways, we just want you guys to know there's another option out there. Typically, companies like us require experience. typically will require at least a year or two of relevant experience. Usually that's, Big Four or public accounting experience, but that could be some relevant industry experience as well. So I hope that helps you to see that there, widens your view of your options down the road. I think I'll hand it over to Andrew now to kind of describe a little bit more in detail what we as Connor Group does and how that could fit into your career plan if that's something you're interested in.
Perfect. Thanks, Matt. That was a good exercise. I need to think of a way to implement that on my little section here. But this is a little spur of the moment, but I just got thinking, since maybe some of you missed it, but I was telling some of these few, Chad, Gohar, Isaac, I was just joking that Jared had mentioned that he loves recruiting from CSUN, but it wasn't a joke. I was serious about that. And when I think back to when I was first talking to Nayeli this summer, because I'm the recruiting manager or one of the recruiting managers for Connor Group, I can kind of tell you what stuck out to me about Nayeli's resume. I mean, immediately, we always recruit and like to recruit those that have an audit background, experience in the public accounting. So when I saw that on Nayeli's resume, that stuck out to me. And I knew at least I wanted to have that conversation with her and see what that experience was like. In addition to that, though, she had the social skills that we look for, and not everybody has. It's really important, and it's tough. It's tough to develop those skills in the year 2020, right? Social media, not always a great thing. It can hinder the development of a lot of those skills. But I also remember, though, kind of submitting Nayeli's candidacy, I guess, to Jared, so that he could speak with her. And immediately one of the first things he mentioned was like, oh, great, CSUN. I love candidates that come from CSUN, but for those reasons. So suffice to say, I think you guys are at a good place. I think you're going to get a quality education, and you're going to get all those other things that come along with it. That's important. That doesn't always get talked about. Right? It's usually just, hey, how good is the school? How good is the education? But there's a lot of other things that play into it, and that I can attest to as a recruiting manager. I look for more than just a name on a resume. There's other school skills that are hugely important. But as far as a quick intro on my background, like I said, I'm one of the recruiting managers for Connor Group. I came from a Big Four background with Deloitte. I started out at Deloitte, Seattle. Then I transferred and did 2 years with Deloitte, Salt Lake. And then since after that, it was time for a switch, time to change the game up a little bit. And I was looking, like Matt said, for that middle ground. I wasn't quite ready to jump into an industry role. I wasn't sure what kind of industry I was interested in yet. So, the danger, I mean, there's a lot of pluses to jump into industry. You get great experience doing the operational side of accounting. But the downside, if you don't know where your interest lies, is sometimes you can pigeonhole. It's not true for every case, but sometimes you can get pigeonholed a little bit in an industry or a role. So I wasn't quite ready for that. I wanted to maintain as many options as I possibly could, as many avenues as I could, and I wanted to land in a place where I could continue to grow my network. And I again mentioned this to Isaac, Chad, and Gohar. If you guys can walk away with one thing from this, it's networking. That's a big one. Network as much as you can. I did not learn that lesson very well in school, and I remember I had to kind of get forced to create a LinkedIn profile back in school. I didn't know and understand the purpose for it. I just said, okay, whatever, you're giving me bonus points in this class, I'll do it. But take it seriously. If you work to grow your network, LinkedIn is a fantastic tool to do that, and you'll be creating new opportunities for yourself. Okay. My part, I wanted to share a little bit more about Connor Group and even the origin story. Connor Group's been around for coming up on 15 years now, but it all started with our CEO. His name's Jeff Pickett. And to be honest, if you hear the story from his own mouth, he'll tell you that Connor Group was started by accident. He had no intentions ever to create Connor Group. But the story goes that he was a senior manager with Ernst & Young out of the Bay Area, and he actually loved his job back then. He loved it because he was that right-hand man, that advisor to the chief financial officers, to the chief accounting officers, to the controllers, as they went and took their companies public. He was also that go-to for any technical questions that came up, and maybe some, technical accounting implementations that those companies needed to go through. But as you've probably learned in school, there's a thing called SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, and controls, that come along with that. And so that was around his time that SOX came along, and all the companies and public companies had to implement that. And you'll find that for a lot of people, that really sucks the fun out of their job. And that was the case for Jeff Pickett. It really sucked the fun out of his job because due to now independence issues, he couldn't do the things that he loved doing. He had to separate himself from all that. So he actually found the door and began pursuing completely different interests. I think it was like real estate that he started doing. But what he didn't count on was referrals. He started getting referred work by the partners at Ernst & Young, by the partners at competing firms. And he started getting roped back into the work of doing IPOs, helping companies go public, preparing the S1 registration statements, helping implement technical accounting standards at firms. And lo and behold, he discovered a niche was born out of SOX. So out of that niche, Connor Group was started and was extremely successful right from the start. And to this day, we've continued to create a monster name for ourselves, especially in the Bay Area. Some of the biggest companies you've ever heard of, they've been our clients. We're talking about Facebook, Uber, Lyft, Spotify, Twitter, Tesla, Snapchat. All of those companies have been our clients at one point in time, and some of them they still continue to be our clients, and we do work for them. So it's been a place for a lot of our professionals to come and get that big name on the resume. You're not, the way I sell Connor Group to candidates is you're not coming here just to get the Connor Group name on the resume. You're coming to also get, the Facebook name maybe on the resume, or the Uber name on the resume. And it's a way to really accelerate your career. Okay. So within the umbrella though of Connor Group, there's a couple different career paths that people can take here. There's one which I mainly focus on and represent. We call it managed services. And it's very similar to an industry type role, very similar to controllership type work. We focus on coming in, helping companies really optimize their month-end close process. And maybe we're coming in, helping them prepare their financial statements, helping them with financial reporting type work. Okay. And then especially during busy season, we might help a company facilitate and prepare for their audit. A lot of these clients of ours have no idea how to navigate through an audit. They've never done it before, but they're growing so fast and they want to go public, and they need to learn how to navigate that audit. And most of our professionals have that background to do that. Another path is what we call technical accounting. That's for, I'll call them our geeks and our nerds, those that really like to do and type up the technical accounting memos. really like to get into the nitty-gritty details of the codification and implement those accounting standards. That's them. That's for their area, and we have a lot of really smart people in that practice that do those sorts of things, and they love it. And I love that they love it, because I don't love it. But we need people like that. Okay. And then one other path that I'd highlight is probably what we call our financial operations. Those are people that implement and help their clients with SOX 404, with controls, implementing those controls throughout, making sure the client and every control owner knows what their job is and what the control and what their control description is that they're in charge of, and making sure that those controls are implemented all throughout the company to mitigate those risks. Okay. And to, be able to go public with all those controls implemented. But on the side, they also do grand system implementations. Maybe you've heard of Oracle NetSuite. Get some nods. Yeah. Okay. They do big system implementations for our clients. NetSuite is one of them. Another one I might highlight is probably Blackline. Blackline helps facilitate, reconciliations, and really streamlines the process of reconciling every month end. Okay. But that's Connor Group in a nutshell. That's what we do. And that's kind of the background of most of our professionals, pretty similar to myself, Matt, and Nayelis. A lot of us come from that audit background, but also a lot of us come in an industry background as well. But with that said, I'm going to turn the time over now to Jared, and he's going to hit on the topic that we told you we'd talk about.
All right, thanks, Andrew. And I'm just going to not even apologize. I'm just going to forewarn you that I may have kids going back and forth behind me. And so for your entertainment, if you see anything, please enjoy. All right, so like I said, Jared Ellison. I'm a director here in the Los Angeles practice for managed services. A little bit of my background. So I think I was telling a couple of people, but I graduated from the University of Utah, and I started at EY in Salt Lake in the audit practice. And then I spent about 4 years there. And then as Matt mentioned, you learn about audit and tax in school, and that's great. And there's a reason you learn about that. Those are, two great areas, and really where a lot of people start their career and can apply what they've learned. And as you get to, out into the market, I was at EY, and all of a sudden I learned about different services that they offered, different practices. And I was like, they had one called transaction advisory services. And I was like, oh, wow, that's a lot more fun than an audit. And, that's in my wheelhouse. So I ended up getting accepted into that practice and moved to LA, and spent about 2 years within Ernst & Young doing that. And I was ready to move out of the Big Four. I had a good offer with another firm that provided those services, and just kind of a top tier firm within transaction work. So I did that for about a year, and then I was traveling a lot. And although travel sounds fun, especially coming out of school, I love to travel, and I was going all over. But kind of a theme of this, our presentation is, things change as you get into your career. They constantly do, and you learn. And, what may be enjoyable initially, given changes in your lifestyle or circumstances, may not be as appealing. And so I was traveling quite a bit and said, I can't do this. And I still enjoyed audit. I didn't disenjoy it. I loved my time at EY. I will always, getting, public accounting experience, and that's not to say private's not good as well. I'm not for or against one another, but I just, in speaking of my own experience, I really enjoyed my time. And so I went back into audit, and I thought, okay, I'm just going to be a partner. That's, what I'm going to do. And I had my mind set on that. And things changed. Some firms that I went to got merged into other firms. And, some of the things that were within my control, I started, to lose control of those, given just, what happens in the market. I couldn't control the market. And as I got further down in my path too, I became a senior manager, and I had my eyes, my mind was made up. I'm just going to be a partner. I looked at private, but I never found, I think Andrew mentioned this, I never found a company that I said, that's a company I really want to work for. Like, I'm passionate about that. And I knew that passion was something that was really important. I needed to be excited about what I was doing, because getting up every morning, you can maybe at school, if you have some classes that you just dread, it's the worst thing to go to those classes. You're like, you're so happy when they cancel it for the day. But not accounting classes, right? Accounting classes we all love and enjoy, and that's what you look forward to every day. But that's what I knew. I needed to be passionate about something. And what I found, as I was senior manager and Andrew kind of talked about this, we dealt a lot with controls, we dealt a lot with regulations. And I found that I was spending less and less time working with my clients on their issues, and I was spending more time addressing regulatory and internal requirements, and which I didn't enjoy. I mean, Jill, just be honest, I didn't enjoy those, and I found it really hard to find stuff that I enjoyed, and that really, when I got up in the morning, I mean, you always hear that, I always heard people say, "Oh, I love going to work. I love what I'm doing," and I didn't. I was trying to force it. I was trying to make it work, tell myself I loved it. Well, fast forward, I knew of Connor Group, but I knew they weren't, doing a ton in Southern California, but I knew they were really good. And I'm all about, I want to work for the best. And that's what I've just always said. I'm going to work for the best that I can get to. I'm going to work for them. So I knew they were really good. And lo and behold, they were moving into Southern California. And I knew a lot of people that worked at Connor Group, and we connected, and the rest is history. And it's been an awesome journey. And what I'm going to speak about is actually part of this journey is, so I joined in April. And if anybody was around, which you all were, in March, I remember exactly where I was at when I was at BDO and I was at a client, and we got these emails. We knew COVID was going on, right? We just didn't know what was going to happen. And all of a sudden, it was a Friday, and it was like just the world just flipped on itself. And it was like, okay, we are going to remote environment. You no longer can go to the client. And literally, like, clients were just like closing up shop right then, like kicking the auditors out. Some of them, they were like, you got to get out of here. Like, everybody's going home. It was a bizarre time. And I remember, thinking, okay, I'm so glad we're set up as a firm to operate remotely, but my client isn't. Like, how are we going to do this? And so, that was one of the challenges. And then 2 weeks later, after that happened, I left BDO to come to Connor Group. And I was like, oh my gosh, I accepted this offer. And how am I going to get onboarded? How am I going to build business down here? How are we going to do this? Like, I don't even know what this COVID thing means. And, what I had planned for, just like in school, I can relate to school, the vision I had of this perfect world, everything's going to work out, completely changed overnight. Fortunately, I was far along enough in my career that I learned that things don't go as planned, and you have to be flexible. And there's not one option that's the right option, and that goes back, I'll hit on this again, but, in school, we're only taught or told about some options. We don't get the full picture. And so just remember that as you are not only in the recruiting process, but just as you get into your career, there's a lot of options out there within the accounting profession. So I start with Connor Group, and it's all remote. And my onboarding was if you can imagine, I'm used to always going into an office, there's a laptop. At EY, we had 3 weeks of onboarding, you met with people, you did happy hours, well, none of that existed anymore. And so we really, at Connor Group, we had to react. We hadn't planned for this, and we had to react and be adaptable. And that's a key, a theme to this that I want to stress, is being adaptable. But also part of that adaptability is being creative and leveraging your talent pool and your resources. So fast forward since April, how's that process been for me? So we went from remote onboarding, which required more on my end, and it's probably going to be the same for you. I had to take the initiative to reach out, to connect with people. One of the big things that we talk about too is networking, and there's a part of networking is not only externally, within your outside of your environment, but also internally, whether it's your student groups or it's, as you start at a firm, it's networking with those individuals. So something for you to think about is, how are you going to get connected and build relationships with the employees at your organization? Well, Zoom came along and we're doing it right now, but it's not the same as me being face-to-face with you, right? It's just, you lose that physical, that in-person connection. And so it's a challenge, but one of the things that we're working through is, how do we maintain our culture? Because at Connor Group, one of the things that really attracted me, and I'm not pushing, and I'm going to pause right there. I'm not, it's one of the things that attracted me to EY was the culture. You'll hear that, you probably hear that in your interviews or when you're talking to people. They'll say, it's all about the people. It's so true. It is, you can go to the best company, but have the most toxic work environment or teams. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's so hard to stay motivated, engaged, versus you have a great team and, then it totally changes. You may not be doing exactly what you love, but you love your team, you love the environment, and that changes everything. So that's, so culture is huge. And think about it for a minute. How do you maintain a culture in a remote environment? That's a question that really, it doesn't keep me up at night. I wouldn't go that far, but it's something that's really on our minds. And I knew that Connor Group had a great culture. That's one of the reasons I joined them. It's from the CEO down to, the intern. It's a great culture that fosters work-life balance. We see, like our tagline, we see more, we do more. We really do, but we have a great culture. And so what we've recognized is we can't lose that culture. And so, put yourselves in our shoes, what do you do to maintain that? Well, we have Zoom. What do we have? We have certain tools available. So how do we leverage those? And so for us, is part of like our onboarding. How do we make sure that when an employee starts, they feel that they are part of an organization? Because when Nayelis started, that was my biggest concern for her. So she started in the LA office. She was our first hire, within here. And I knew she came from a great school. I'll say shout out to CSUN. And I knew she had a great background, but I needed to provide an environment where she felt connected, and she knew that everything that I was saying and I was preaching actually existed. And so we've had in-person lunches when we can, but we also do virtual, a lot of just touch points. I tried to get her connected to her peer group on like the day after she started. We had a virtual lunch. We got DoorDash, and everybody had DoorDash and was connecting. I made sure that she was, I think I said this, but connected with her peer group, that she knew who they were. And it wasn't just it was on a more personal level. So that's the onboarding. And we made sure that day one, she had her laptop, she was set up, Nayelis was kind of our first, you know, I don't know if guinea pig is the right word, but she really, you know, went through that process. So, and did we get it 100% right? Of course not. You know, we're learning as we're going. But through that process, we've taken feedback and we're working on bettering that process. Andrew, you know, is really involved in that and does a phenomenal job. So that's the onboarding, which for each of you, that's something that, you know, you're going to face. And I don't know where we'll be at in, you know, 12 months, 1 year, 2 years, but that's a real challenge that you'll go through. And so another part of that is you as a student thinking through how you can make sure you get connected and you feel a part of a culture. You embrace that culture, you live it. And another thing that is important is empowering people. I think more so now than ever is really empowering people at all levels. There's not, you know, this, you know, hierarchy or bureaucracy or whatever you want to call it is, you know, we have to break down some of those walls and really empower people, because we're living in an environment where, because we're not going to an office every day and we're not having those face-to-face, you know, connections, and there's not that routine schedule that we just follow. I get up, I go to the office, you know, spend my how many hours and I drive home. And I get to see people and they tell me, hey, you know, someone's sick or this or that, they're going through challenges. So being remote, we really have to check in with each other, but we have to empower people to own their schedules and own their career, let's say. And through that, I've seen, you know, what we've done at Con Group is we've really tried to foster that, empowering people, you know, and letting them, like Nayelis, her and I met and we talked about recruiting and we talked about CSUN. And I was like, hey, you know, we really need to get a footprint there and introduce ourselves and build a relationship. And she's like, I got it, Jared. Like, I'm all over it. And now we're here, you know, we're speaking to you guys and it's awesome. And she just joined. So that's another important part of it, is how to empower people and leverage their skill sets, especially in this remote environment that we live in. Lastly is how, you know, we're client serving. So how do we maintain a strong relationship with our clients, and how do we provide top quality services? So that's where it goes back to, you know, leveraging our, I mean, we have all the tools. It is a culture we're set up for the most part to work remotely, you know, whether it's DMing, whatever it is. I mean, especially your generation, you guys operate that way. You know, it's like in your DNA. Not so much in mine per se, but it's what you guys live and breathe. And so another thing is bringing that, you guys bring to the table something that a lot of this experienced people within your career or within your profession, they're struggling with. So day one, you guys come in almost with an advantage or a skill set that you can offer in this, especially in a remote working environment. You operate efficiently that way. You know how to, you know, generate or put together a concise message and get it across quick and effective. You have a skill set that's really valuable. And so I encourage you to use that and to share that, you know, with wherever you go, to, you know, offer that skill set and think of how you can add value to your organization as we work through this, you know, this environment that we operate in. The last thing that I would share with you is your career development. So think of, before, trainings were in person. You know, I'll go back to EY. When I started EY, it was 3 weeks of in-person training. And then every year we had, you know, 1 to 2 weeks of in-person live training with an instructor. You know, now, I mean, you're remote. You're doing probably school remote, right? I know my kids are doing it remote, and they're, you know, one of them, it's like a challenge. We have that challenge as businesses, we have that challenge too. How do we train our employees? How do we continue to train them and get them up to this, get them to the skill set that they need? Well, you guys are learning a valuable skill set as well about how to learn remotely. So these, I'm so happy that you guys are, participating in the Accounting Association, that you guys are involved in these Zoom calls, that you're, taking a proactive approach to your careers. And what I leave you with is there's skills that you guys are learning right now that you don't even realize are so valuable in the workforce. And so feel confident in that, understand that and be happy about that, but also share that. Don't just, and build upon and think of ways that you can leverage those skills, as you go into your organization. Because right now it's unprecedented times, and there is no game plan of how we're going to get through this. We're reacting, we're trying to be proactive. And I think at Connor Group, we've done a phenomenal job, but we're not perfect. And we don't have hey, here is, the path, these 5 steps. So as you come in, there's a lot of value that you can add to that. And so I encourage you to, to find confidence in that and use that to your advantage. So again, those are my kind of takeaways. Hopefully that's been of some value to you. Again, we're happy to, at any point in time, I think we'll open up for questions, but if you have questions outside of that, whether it's talking more about career options, remote working like we've talked about, or just, feedback, please don't hesitate to reach out to any of us. So I'll turn the time back over. I think that's the end of the presentation component.
Okay, yeah, we'll open it up then for questions.
Feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat or any of it.
And if you'd like to, ask a question, if you could turn on your camera, that would be great as well, if you would like. But yeah, now's your opportunity. We don't get this perspective of an accounting field very often, and it's a great opportunity to ask anything regarding it.
Before, as they're taking time to think, I do have a quick question. I know me, Chad, and Isaac, when we were in the room before, we were talking to Andrew and Matt briefly about this, of how currently you guys have the option to either work from home or go to the office, but not as many people are taking advantage of that. So as of right now, do you guys have like a plan for fully transferring back to the office, or is it kind of just going with the flow and seeing what happens?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit to that. There isn't a plan to transfer back into the office. I don't expect that there will be a plan. I think we will make it known that an office is available to people to come in as needed and, get some work done with some other, with a printer available if they need that, and other things as well. But I don't think, I think, COVID and the pandemic is going to have very long-term ramifications. We as a practice within Connor Group actually traveled a lot before the pandemic. It was probably upwards, to set expectations right, we told people upwards to 50%. Reality was around 25%. But yeah, obviously no travel since this started. Likely no travel for the rest of the year. Likely no travel till a vaccine's available. But even after that, I don't see us even getting back to 10 to 15% travel. That's probably where we're going to max out. So I mean, a slight tangent, but that kind of goes to show where our mindset is and where our clients' mindset is as well. They've realized that things can be done effectively remotely, and so our current and future clients all probably share a similar mindset in that. So we won't be going on site for that. And it's similar to how we're thinking now. A lot of people just got comfortable working from home, and they'll continue to do so. I am one. I like to get out of the house a little bit. I'm probably the most frequent visitor of our office these days, but even then I still come in less than I did. It's only like 2 or 3 times a week that I come in now. So that's kind of where it's at, and I don't expect it to change anytime
Well,
soon.
and even prior to the pandemic, there was no expectation that you needed to go into the office, to our office at least. I mean, if the client wanted you at their place, then we would, of course, serve the client's needs. But yeah, going into our office in Lehigh, Utah, or I guess we had a small one up in Salt Lake as well. Not a whole lot of expectation for you to show up there either. So we kind of, to Jared's point earlier, we were pretty set up well. We were set up really well for the pandemic, because most of our clients, most of our professionals already worked from home on a regular basis.
And one other thing that kind of gets into a culture question a little bit, in a sense. I think people don't realize it, but I think that an office, a physical location for everybody to gather, was often an asset that we didn't realize we had. Because what it did, and it's almost getting into the science of what makes up a culture, but it creates these like micro collisions, right? You come in, you sit next to somebody, and when it's open hoteling, you sit next to probably somebody new every day, or at least on a weekly basis. And what do? You naturally, make conversation a lot of times, and you're building new relationships, and that in itself is the beginnings of creating a culture, one way or another. And so it was one thing I almost wanted to mention after Jared is it kind of creates the question, how do you replace that? And luckily we have something called Slack. It's a way to, maybe many of you've heard of it, but it's just an instant messenger type application, but it also creates groups or channels. And I don't know that we realize it as a firm, but I think it's actually a huge asset, because we create a group for random comments, a group for our own state, Utah or something, a group and channel for sports talk, a group for general talk, and, for every type of topic of conversation. So people can just blast something out that, hey, did you see the Laker game last night? Hey, did you see this in the news or something? And that's creating these, micro collisions, so to speak, where people have an option to, or a chance to interact and build on this culture. So anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent to that question, but I thought it was important to just make a brief mention to it.
That was great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.
Looks like we had a question in the chat from Mary. She said, as a specialized advisory firm, is Connor Group looking to recruit only those who have had a background in audit or tax, or have already worked in certain industries already, like Nayelis?
Yeah, good question. I'd say both, right? Except for, sorry, tax people, we don't we don't have too many spots for tax, just because that's just an area we haven't chosen to focus on and serve. But especially within our managed services practice, it created more opportunities for those with an industry background, because that's a lot of the services that we provide is to companies that need maybe to fill in a role here and there, anywhere between staff and controller roles, fill in for 3 to 6 months for whatever reason. Maybe they've had turnover, maybe someone went on maternity leave. Maybe someone got let go because they weren't performing. I don't know, various reasons, but we definitely look at experienced people with industry backgrounds.
Awesome. Okay. And we also had another one from Ron. He says, hello, from what I've read so far on your website, the selling point of Connor Group to clients is that most employees are Big Four alum. Is this the case, or is that the case for the most part in terms of the working environment?
I'll let somebody else take a turn.
I'll shoot.
Okay, go for it, Jared.
Okay. That's our origins, came from Big Four alum. So, but it's not since we've grown, I think we're over 250 individual, employees across the US, and they come from various backgrounds. For us, it's not so to answer your question is, there are a lot that just naturally from the Big Four, because that's a network that we have former alumni. And so as a good example is I'm talking with, people, I was from EY, and I knew people from EY that are at Connor Group. So it just naturally, there's that connection. It didn't mean that I had to come from a Big Four. Nayelis came from senior LEWAC, and her background is just as, it's not about the background does not have to be the deciding factor. It's more your experience. When I say that, I mean, what firm you came from, it's more your experience and how that fits into the services that we provide. Because at the end of the day, what we're selling is backgrounds, experience. That's what our clients are paying for. They're paying for our experience. And so that can come from a lot of different areas. And so it's just making sure, understanding, if your experience fits into the needs for our clients, is probably the best way.
Yeah, to that point, let me add, it's just easy to when you can say to a client, oh yeah, this individual, Big Four background, that means something, right? It means, okay, this individual has probably seen companies that are big. They might have probably have experience with a public company. But it's not always the case. I know 1 or 2 or 3 Big Four backgrounds that people that didn't get a good experience, right? But you get that at other firms too. Naomi got a great experience, I think, at senior LEWAC, and it works, and it's something, and it's a background that we can sell to our clients. So that's just one tidbit I wanted to add on.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. If anyone else has something, now's your opportunity.
If no one else asks a question, I have another one for you guys. In terms of your recruiting efforts, do you guys have any opportunities for sophomores and juniors? Because I do know that a lot of our members do tend to join clubs a lot earlier in their accounting careers, and they are interested. So if they are interested in getting to know a little bit more about the firm, do you have any opportunities for sophomores and juniors, whether it's internships or any programs?
Yeah, I would say we have some opportunities forthcoming, kind of in terms of internships, probably for juniors, more likely. Those opportunities will grow as we continue to expand our presence, especially in LA area. They're pretty limited and highly competitive right now, but in coming years, they'll be more prevalent and available. Cool.
I think I had a quick question, actually. I have a good. So in terms of, you've mentioned that you look for people who have experience in industry or audit field mostly, and you like seeing the CSUN name. I've heard that a couple of times, but what other experiences catches your eye when an applicant goes for Connor Group? Like what other activities that they do or experiences do you take into consideration that are just placed at a higher value?
Good question. I guess it gets into a little bit, a little more granular, right? Like, okay, if they're audit or industry, well, what type of audit experience, what type of industry experience are we talking about? So if someone can point out to me that, hey, I've got this audit experience and these were my clients and they're all public, or maybe they went, their client went through a specific experience. Maybe they went through an acquisition that they were a part of and they got to see, those were all big. Then on the industry side, kind of the same thing. Like, yeah, I was there in a prominent role while my company went public as well. So they put in the hours and got that experience. So those kinds of things will stand out, and they're not always right on the surface level of a resume, and they might take a conversation to identify those things.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you.
So that's a point, you know, if you can throw that on the resume and highlight those things, you know, that's fantastic.
I would just echo onto that's, you know, what we're typically sets a candidate apart, or what we're looking for is the same things that you would want to apply, or what set you apart within your employer, you know, amongst your peer group. So I remember at EY, or, you know, BDO, wherever I was at, it was, you know, there was kind of the general things that you could do and you could do well, and everybody did them, but it was, what else did you do that really went above and beyond, or set you apart? And it could be a specialized industry that you work in that you're really, you know, you've really, you're kind of seen as the go-to person in that industry at whatever level. Or it could be, to Andrew's point, a transaction that you worked on, so you've got experience and exposure to that. You know, that same school of thought of, wherever I go, if it's public accounting or private, and what can I do to set myself apart and differentiate myself, you know, because I think we all are driven and want to accelerate our career, whether it's promotions or that. And that's always a question you're going to get in your feedback, your reviews. Those things, to Andrew's point, they don't necessarily come out on the resume. They're nice to put on there, and I encourage it. But it's those type of things when you're talking with someone that you see, okay, they're driven. They obviously, you know, want to, they do high quality work. They're ambitious. They're trying to set themselves apart in some way, or go in a direction.